Hey everybody, Bill Miller here talking about overcoming abusive behaviors and abusive patterns. Today I want to talk a little bit about probably something not very many people are good at, and that is patience, and the role it plays in our recovery and our overcoming our I don't know if you want to call it a sickness or whatever you'd want to call it, but it's probably as closest to a sickness. It's not a disease, but it's they call alcoholism a disease because it changes the way your brain, the patterns and so forth in your brain, which is a lot actually what this does is we've created these patterns of unhealthy behaviors and things and so forth in our brains. So there is actually a physical part to this because we actually have brain paths that we've created through years and years of behaving certain ways that we're trying to change now. And that's kind of, I guess, where we could start with the patience part. For me, as an example, I'm 35 years probably worth of creating these pathways in my brain, these behaviors that I started out maybe as a 10-year-old kid, 12, 13. I started out pushing people away, probably putting up walls around my heart, being mean to people so they didn't think I cared about them, being mean to people so I would convince myself that I don't care about them. So that was 35 years ago at this point. So I've got 35 years worth of behaviors that I am trying to erase completely from my brain. And while it is possible, it's not possible to do it in a month or 2 months, like we all probably want. We want everyone, to forgive us now that, if it's like me, the minute you really discover or admit fully that you're an abusive person, emotionally abusive, verbally abusive, and even physically abusive. Once you truly discover that about yourself, and realize unconsciously that's who you've been for such a big part of your life, a lot changes with you immediately. You start, first of all, you go through and think about a million things that you've done to hurt people in your past. For me, geez, oh dear. I couldn't even begin to apologize for all of the things that I've done, all of the people that I've hurt, starting with my wife, the hundreds of things that I've said to her, all in an unconscious effort to let her know that I would be fine without her in my life, and to convince myself that I didn't need her, that I would, that she can't hurt me if she leaves. That's a big one with me, is trying to convince myself that it wasn't going to kill me if she left me. I acted like I didn't give a shit if she left, or not, which is a horrible way to treat somebody that you love. It's a horrible way to treat your wife. To make her feel unwanted by her own husband that's as abusive as it gets emotionally. And that's what I did, and I can see now that I can, I'm a little bit more able to step away from myself and view myself from a different lens. I was also trying hard to convince myself that I didn't need her, that she couldn't hurt me, that I would be fine if she decides one day to leave me, because I probably felt inside that I wasn't good enough for her. That eventually she was going to leave me anyway, so I would protect myself and try to convince myself that it wasn't going to hurt me if she did or when she did, instead of making damn sure she didn't by treating her the way she deserves to be treated, the way everyone deserves to be treated, like a king or queen, instead of letting her know every single day how incredible she is and how important she is to me and how much I love her and enjoy her and need her and cherish her and adore her and worship her. Instead of letting her know all those things and making myself vulnerable to her breaking my heart, instead I push her away. I make sure she knows. I make sure that I try to convince myself, that I don't need her, that I would be fine without her. That way, once I'm convinced of that, then she can't hurt me anymore, And while that's true, and that's how it works in our feeble little brains that are underdeveloped, and because we've never taken the time to go through what I'm going through now, that's just who we've become. But we're talking years and years and years worth of these patterns being developed and behaviors being mastered, if you will. You start manipulating when you're a young kid, and everyone manipulates, without a doubt. Everybody manipulates. Just to what extent is the only question, or the only thing that's a variable. But you get good at it. You get good. You get very convincing. You're able to convince yourself. You're able to convince the people you're with, around you. Of whatever you want. You just get so good at learning different ways to defend yourself that are so convincing. Like, I guarantee you, my wife felt on many, many, many occasions that it really didn't matter to me if she stayed with me or not. Like, I was that convincing. And here I am now. Today's my 1 month anniversary that she left me. And I feel dead inside. I feel empty, shallow, embarrassed, sad. I got everything that I deserved. I treated her so poorly that she had no choice but to leave me and to change her life for the better, because she couldn't change me while she stayed with me. I mean, I say that, but I don't believe that. I know that's how she feels. She did almost leave me, and it did change me. But then one night, a few days later, we got drunk, and I reverted back to my abusive ways, and that was it, and I lost her forever. 2 weeks after I realized I was an abuser, I had 2 weeks to work on it and to get better. And then we drank, and I reverted back, because you can't undo all your behaviors in 2 weeks. You can't change all those patterns, all those pathways in your brain. You can't fix all that. You can't fix 35 years worth of fucking up in 2 weeks. I fucked up again. And she left me. I wish, it makes me sick sometimes to hear, everyone talk about how, people that have been married for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, how they talk about, the hard times they went through, and how, there's not one person that's been married for 20 years plus, 10 years plus, probably 5 years plus. There's really not one couple out there that doesn't go through really hard times, but they stick with it, and they fight it out. They sleep in separate bedrooms. They leave each other and get back together. They do all sorts of things. But I only had 2 weeks to totally change who I was, who I've been my whole life. And it makes me sad that I'm not one of those couples. I'm not one of those husband and wives, that we're going to be able to sit around and talk about how, in the beginning I was this, had these problems, that I didn't know how to express myself or communicate with my wife, or rid myself of my angers in a healthy manner, like convey my anger in a healthy communicative manner. Instead, I just lost her, and that sucks. Anyway, patience is a hard one, because you want people to forgive you right away. Now that you've changed, now that you've kind of figured out, now that I have figured out who I was, and now that I'm working so hard to change who I was, and making a ton of progress, to be fair and honest, I feel pretty good about certain things in my life, that I've overcome, that I understand now, to the point, where that I won't go back to being that person, because, I've rid myself of some of the angers that I've, endured, that have caused me to be this way. I've dealt with them, I've processed them, and I've released them from my shoulders, from my body, from my brain, from my heart. And I know that, and I've done that, in a short period of time, 6 weeks. But I haven't changed every pathway in my brain in 6 weeks. I haven't, mastered really anything yet. And as much as I want everyone, that knows me to understand why I became that ugly person, that abusive person, I want people to understand why I became that person. And it wasn't because I woke up one day and decided I wanted to be mean to people that I love. There's no part of us, that ever thought that for one day, that it's something we want to do. We didn't have a choice when we were little. We weren't educated enough with all of the different ways to protect yourself, to protect your feelings, to protect your emotions in your heart when you're little and you go through shit. You just learn, you just figure out how to not get hurt again by putting up walls, by pushing people away, by hurting people before they can hurt you. But it doesn't make us mean. And it doesn't mean we're not human, and it doesn't mean we're animals. It just means that we tried to survive the pain that we were feeling by coming up with defense mechanisms and protecting our hearts from feeling those pains again. And we got to where that's all we knew how to do, and that's just the people we became. We just became that person that, instead of letting someone hurt my heart, hurt me, I would hurt them first. I would make them want to leave me. And I would make them know that I would be fine without them. Because I was trying to convince myself that I would be totally fine, that when they leave me, I will be fine. And I would try my hardest to convince myself of that. And it's not because I'm an animal, and it's not because I'm a bad, unloving person. It's because I was never really shown. I didn't really have an example in my life of how to cope with feelings, how to express feelings. but we want it, like, once we start figuring it out, we just want so desperately for everyone to understand what we went through and what turned us into that person, and now that we are getting better, we want people to know that, like the ones that we love. I want my wife to know that I've learned why I developed those defense mechanisms. I know what caused me. I know what caused them. And I've dealt with those. I've processed those things. And I will work every day for the rest of my life, or until I know for a fact that there's not another path in my brain that leads to abusive behaviors. I will stay humble. I will keep my books open and my mind open. I will constantly try to be a better person, but it's going to take some time. I wish I had time. I'm sure we all wish we had more time. Even for ourselves, I wish, I lose patience. I had a bad day today. Because I want to feel better. I want to be a success story. I want to be able to say that I overcame it. And I want to know that it's out of me. And I want my wife back so I can show her. But I can't control that. I can just, I'm trying to stay patient. I'm working every day. I'm learning as much as my body can learn, my brain can learn. I'm trying to stay patient with the process, because I do believe in the process for sure. I know that if, there are things that cause this in me. There's things that cause this in all of us that end up being abusive. And if there are things that caused it, then there are things that we can resolve, like those same things that caused it, we can resolve those in our heads. Because the only reason we put these walls up were to protect ourselves, because that's all we knew at the time, and those were the habits and behaviors that we repeated, hundreds of times through our lives. And now that we understand that, we can undo them. First and foremost, we don't have to put walls up ever again. Because if we want to put a wall up, then at least now we have the education. I have the education to know, like, if I feel myself putting walls up, or maybe having, the desire to push someone away because I'm afraid to get hurt. I know what causes that now, and I can acknowledge that to my wife. I could say, like, hey, there's something about this that is triggering me, and while I don't have it figured out quite yet, I can tell that I'm being triggered. I can tell that my defense mechanisms are engaging, and I can make her aware of it, and I can be aware of it myself, and I can, kind of move forward from there. I know for a fact I can stop them now. Like, I don't have any issues with that. I don't think I have defense mechanisms anymore. Those are something that you put up in order to not get hurt anymore. But now I know for a fact that the reason I was trying to not get hurt, the reason I would try to protect myself, is because I was trying to protect myself from leg. From my sister's kidnapper hurting me still, or my dad hurting me still, and I don't have to worry about either anymore, you know. I don't have to worry about any of those things anymore. Now the only thing that I get to look forward to is hopefully loving again and subjecting my heart to all of the incredible feelings and joys of love, and not pushing it away and being afraid of it, because that love leads to hurt. At least now I know, like, love leads to happiness. And I will be as patient as I have to be, not only with the process, but I will be here a year from now, not in this goddamn bar, but I will be a year from now, 2 years from now, still knowing that I'm doing the right thing, and still working, still making sure that I don't have any, childhood bullshit in me that's causing me to, have ill feelings or defense mechanisms or bad behaviors or false beliefs. I know I will be patient, but boy, it's hard. And that's all that's where I'm at, is just, we have to be patient with this. And have faith, I guess. Sorry, I'm a big bawling baby today.